everybody, it's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. We're also at the very beginning of December, so you know what that means. It is time for my annual HEA Holiday Romance Roundup. HEA, of course, standing for Happily Ever After. These films are going to be your Hallmark and Lifetime style holiday movies. They are guaranteed a happily ever after, thus the whole HEA holiday romance. And while some of them can be pretty formulaic and predictable, I've tried to put together a list of titles that have something a little bit extra, a little bit special about them. Titles that I really personally enjoy a lot, just because while they do offer that sort of comforting happily ever after, they also have just a little bit extra added into that. Now, as always, these recommendations are available entirely free with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card. They are also all going to be available on our Hoopla digital service. Hoopla has an incredible amount of HEA holiday romances. So if you do like holiday titles, if you're into the Hallmark Hall of Fame style movies, please make sure you check out Hoopla's selection. They even have a couple of genre features, so you can just go ahead and click when you get to the screen and it brings you to all of the latest holiday films. Super duper easy to use. So with that, I want to go ahead and dive right into the Recs. Hope you enjoy. Okay, kicking things off with our first pick, which is Christmas Recipe for Romance. Now, if you've followed this channel for any length of time, you already know I'm quite a fan of foodie films, and that, of course, runs over into the HEA holiday romance genre. A lot of these foodie HEAs do tend to be kind of formulaic. In this one in particular, we have a young woman, Abby. She runs her family's inn, which happens to be in a little bit of financial difficulty. She decides to join this cooking contest in order to garner a little bit of publicity and hopefully win a prize. Unfortunately, Abby doesn't know how to cook. Abby, in fact, is a terrible cook. She's one of those people who burns water in the kitchen. Somehow she manages to finagle one of her guests into helping her out. This guest just happens to be an incredibly successful chef from New York, like you do. Anyway, these two end up hitting it off after, of course, a period of time where their personalities totally clash. And that's your primary thrust of the storyline. So yes, that part, not particularly unique. But what I really loved about this one is that it adds this secondary storyline that I'd not seen done in one of these HEAs before. So, as I mentioned, the love interest is this sort of high-powered New York chef. What his existence in the story allows the writers to do is add this sort of dramatic layer where we get to see the behind the scenes kind of machinations that could be going on in the food industry, especially the high powered foodie industry. We see some sort of unscrupulous food journalism going on. We see some betrayal, some really sort of like seedy parts of the industry. And yes, it is kind of like very convenient how these things all roll together, but I really liked that about it. It gave the storyline a little bit of extra oomph. So, if you are one of those people who is like me and likes foodie films, if you are looking for an HEA, but you want something that's just a little bit off the beaten path from your standard Hallmark holiday films, check out Christmas Recipe for Romance. You get that warm, fuzzy feeling from your primary storyline, but you also get this sort of interesting otherness that you don't necessarily find in your standard holiday romance. Oh, and did I mention that the love interest is also British, so you've got that extra element added in. I always find it so funny when they just throw in these sort of like random accents just because people know that that's sort of an appeal point. Anyway, that's in there too. So if that's something you enjoy, add that to the pros column. So yeah, if you're looking for something a little bit different, but you like a foodie holiday romance, check out Christmas Recipe for Romance. It's a fun one and definitely a nice pick for the holidays. Okay, moving right along to my next pick. This one is for the title Broadcasting Christmas. Now, you cannot do a HEA Hallmark-style film collection and not include a Dean Cain title. I mean, he's in like 90% of the Hallmark Hall of Fame films I've seen. Anyway, Broadcasting Christmas features not only Dean Cain, but also Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Melissa Joan Hart. So, of course, this one has to go on my recommended list. The two of them are really serviceable actors. They're reliable, they're charming, they're very cute, and they have really solid chemistry. So I knew that this one was going to be one that was definitely enjoyable throughout. The storyline, though, is also something that I really, really enjoyed. In Broadcasting Christmas, you're dealing with two exes who end up competing for a co-host position on a morning show. He is certainly much more successful mainstream audience wise than she is, but she brings this sort of like spunk and vitality to the position. So you have that layer of history going on because they were involved in the past. You also have that workplace drama / excitement going on. There are some really, really fun secondary characters. And at the heart of it, you have this really charming chemistry between the two. I mean, this is like Christmas morning puppy chasing its tails adorable, because the two of them are really, really cute. And again, they have this great chemistry. The other thing that I really like about this particular film is that it features characters who are not like in their early 20s. These stories have a tendency to skew young, I feel. Whereas this one, these are two very, very definitely like they are two adults who have had lives, who have had experiences, and, you know, this is a second chance for them. And I love stories that are like that, whether we're talking about holiday romances or just stories in general. I love the concept of a second chance, which is probably why Jane Austen's Persuasion is my favorite Jane Austen. Anyway, I digress. In Broadcasting Christmas, you have that workplace competition going on. So there are tons of moments where the two of them clash, and you see that history feed into it. So it is actually quite a believable tension between the two of them on top of the romance. Sometimes it feels very manufactured, and this one it feels pretty organic. And overall, storyline wise, acting wise, really everything with regard to just being a well-made film outside of being an HEA holiday film. I really liked this one. I honestly would recommend this just in like your standard romance films. So if you're looking for an incredibly adorable romance, if you're looking for some workplace drama, if you like sort of like a battle of the sexes storyline, check out Broadcasting Christmas. You've got a great cast, especially if you were ever a fan of Sabrina the Teenage Witch or a fan of the Lois and Clark TV series. This one's a fun one, and it's got like those little nods towards nostalgia, but also just is a great holiday romance in general. So again, Broadcasting Christmas, highly, highly recommended. Okay, my next recommendation is for the film A Christmas Detour, which stars Candace Cameron Bure, another of Hallmark's really favorite actors. Candace Cameron Bure, of course, is famous for her role as DJ in Full House. She always puts in reliable performances, and, you know, seeing her on the cast list generally means you're going to be talking about a slightly better written, more high budget, made for TV film. And this one in particular does not disappoint. It actually reminds me a great deal of the Amy Adams, Matthew Good movie Leap Year, or at least it does in particular ways. So Candace Cameron Bure's character is this happy-go-lucky bride-to-be. Her soon-to-be in-laws are rather well-to-do and very hoity-toity. They are judgy. They are not people you would necessarily want to have as your in-laws. Though her fiance seems perfectly fine. That said, she's on her way to meet them for the holidays when her flight is unexpectedly detoured. She becomes rather desperate to get there so that they don't end up judging her and being awful to her. She doesn't want to disappoint her fiance. So she ends up deciding to drive to her destination with this other stranded passenger who just happens to be this rather cynical bar manager who's kind of like lost faith in the season. And he's very charming, but also just, he's definitely not as happy-go-lucky and plucky as she is, but they do end up hitting it off. And as the movie progresses, we see, you know, a lot of his backstory come to light, and we see them finding this connection on this road trip. I love road trip movies in general. I find them to be highly entertaining. Being trapped in a car with someone for any length of time can lead to a lot of self-reflection, and I find that this kind of storyline is actually quite believable in that sense, where yeah, you would totally talk to a stranger, because what else are you going to do for hours on end trapped into a small space? But yeah, I found this film really, really enjoyable. Barring the whole concept of happily ever after holiday movies, it was just an enjoyable road trip film. Like I said, it does remind me a great deal of Leap Year, so if you liked that movie, this one is definitely a nice sort of piggyback off of that with that holiday layer on top. The romance between the two main characters felt pretty organic. They seemed like characters that would be drawn to one another, especially after being trapped in a car together for hours on end. But besides that, it's not altogether far-fetched that Cameron Bure's character would initially be in love with her fiance character. You know, he is this handsome, dashing, rich guy who was always quite nice to her, but there's just not the spark of chemistry that there is with the main character in here. And that guy's parents really are terrible. Like, terrible. I mean, if there's going to be a mustache twirler in this one, it's those two. The mother more so than the father. Anyway, I digress. These films like this are always sort of, you kind of side-eye them, mainly because the primary heroine is always in this established relationship, and then she falls in love while she's still kind of in it, and so I always am like, it always does make me side-eye some of the writing. But I mean, this is a pretty standard trope within the romance genre in general, so what are you going to do? If you do, however, enjoy a good road trip romance, if you do like, if you liked Leap Year, if you are looking for a story that just has a lot of really charming, warm, and fuzzy moments, check out A Christmas Detour. This one was just in general quite a solid movie with some pretty decent acting all the way around, especially coming from Cameron Bure. So again, Christmas Detour, HEA holiday film recommended. Moving right along to my next recommendation. This is for the film A Christmas to Remember. Quite a fabulously punny title once you find out what the movie's all about. Christmas to Remember stars Mira Sorvino, Oscar-winning actress of Mighty Aphrodite fame from the 90s, and soap superstar Cameron Matheson. And let me be honest, I loved this movie. I really, really honestly enjoyed it so much. I'd not heard about it at all before putting this year's list together, and it's from 2017, so it's not super new or anything, but I'm so glad that I came across it. Now, this one has some sort of like classic holiday film vibes to it. Like, I'm talking like Christmas in Connecticut style classic films from like the 40s and the 50s. Um, in it, you've got Mira Sorvina's character, who is a Martha Stewart-esque home styling guru. She's got her own show. She's like wicked successful, but nice. She's really nice. She's not like, you know, one of those people who has to go through emotional change in order to not be a horrible human being. Like some, like, because that's definitely a plot point for a lot of holiday romances, I find. This one, no, that's not the case. She's just, you know, always running on empty. She's always going, going, going. There's no moment to have anything resembling a real life. It's always all about making this beautiful semblance of a life. Anyway, this holiday season, she decides she's going to go up to a mountain retreat to sort of relax, recharge. But on the way there, she gets into a bit of a car accident and ends up with amnesia, like you do. This happens late at night, so she ends up getting out of her car and wandering the dark streets of this like mountain town. It's like very rural. There are no people around. Matheson's character almost runs her down. And out of the goodness of his heart, because he is this like very warm-hearted, kind veterinarian of all things, he takes care of and loves animals. He ends up bringing her to his family's home to try and recover, again, like you do, with total strangers. And from there, the two, of course, grow to know one another and learn about one another's circumstances. This, of course, is all on top of Mira Sorvino's character having no idea who she is. So she's a blank slate. She's just living in that moment. And I don't know, there's something really likable about the two characters meeting under the circumstances they do and how their relationship develops. Matheson's character is honestly such a nice guy. Like, just like the dictionary definition of nice guy. He is a widower. As I mentioned, he's a vet. I mean, he's like ticking all of the boxes. And his character really genuinely seems to need Mira Sorvino's character in this particular moment of time. And it's, I don't know, there was just something really weirdly organic about these performances, even though the situation is so out there and so far-fetched. I mean, like, the amnesia trope is so typical, but there's something about the two that makes it super acceptable. Like, you're just like, whatever, I don't care, I just like them on screen together. And isn't that kind of what these, like, that is, we're supposed to feel that connected to these characters. HEAs want you to be so invested in these characters' stories that you do just like push aside all of the disbelief. You definitely suspend all of it in order to just get to that happy ending. Anyway, Christmas to Remember features those two actors who have ridiculous chemistry. Like, it really is like this like soft, fluffy chem. Like, they just work well together. You also have a couple of really cute kids that are genuinely cute and genuinely likable. Not annoying like some children on screen are. But really they're enjoyable kids on screen. You've got a number of secondary characters that are just as fun and quirky as you could hope for. You've also got some weird secondary romance storylines going on that make you root for that primary couple all the more. Anyway, if you're looking for a truly well acted, enjoyable HEA holiday film this year, check out A Christmas to Remember. Like I said, this was my favorite of the bunch. I absolutely loved it. It is less funny than, say, some of the other choices for this particular week, but I think overall a better movie. So if you're just looking for a really good holiday romance, check out A Christmas to Remember. You absolutely will not regret it. Okay, last recommendation for the week is for a film called Mistletoe and Menorahs. Now, this one was just a lot of fun to watch. We are dealing with two characters who have two very different cultural backgrounds, and the storyline, of course, brings them together. So they fall in love happily ever after, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, in this one, we are dealing with this very ambitious, driven toy executive. She wants to land this big new client, but in order to do so, she needs to learn everything she can about Hanukkah, which she knows absolutely nothing about. She happens to be a bit of a Christmas expert, as she describes herself. She loves everything about the holiday, from the meaning behind it to the decor, the music, everything. It just so happens that a coworker of hers has a friend who is in need of learning about Christmas, so the two of them get together to sort of be one another's holiday tutors. It's definitely a silly premise, but still ends up being crazy charming. And the whole concept of like blended cultural families is quite lovely, I think. And the two of them have a really sweet sort of chemistry together. The storyline's kind of ludicrous, but at the same time, you can totally follow along with it. You get when one or the other is like, very confused about a particular practice. And there's some laugh out loud moments that I wasn't expecting in this, like literal laugh out loud moments, not like smirking or yeah, that's funny, but I actually like guffawed while I was watching. Um, the acting is really serviceable. The two of them are, they bounce off of one another very, very well. You've got some very nice side characters going along with it, but at the heart of it, I really do love that whole concept of the cultural combination. So if you're looking for something that is lighthearted, that is funny, that has a nice, sweet romance to it, but that also looks at the importance of acceptance of cultural difference, that sort of encourages learning about different beliefs and practices, check out Mistletoe and Menorahs. It was fun, it was funny, and it was just a nice HEA holiday romance, sort of like the quintessential thing that I'm looking for in an HEA. So again, Mistletoe and Menorahs, highly recommended. All right, that brings me to the end of my HEA Hallmark-style holiday films recommendation list. If you have any recommendations for films that fit that bill as well, please comment with those below. If you have recommendations for themes you'd like to see me cover in the future, comment with those also. As always, thank you so, so much for joining me this week. I love sharing titles with you, and I love getting feedback as well. So with that, I am going to close things out and wish everybody a happy, happy week. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.